Begin today the Gemara on Daf Nun Beis Amud Beis, 5 lines up from the bottom of the Amud. Tani Rav Hoshia. Okay, so it mentioned here before from the Mishnah regarding the chazakeh, which is not to prove that it's yours when there's an argument, but rather a chazakeh that creates the actual kinyan. When you're buying a property from someone, so the chazakeh, as the Gemara here today will elaborate, that creates the kinyan in the karka. So Tani Rav Hoshia b'kiddushin, Rav Hoshia taught b'kiddushin de Bei Levi. In the brises of kiddushin of Levi, so he taught the following halacha. B'chlal Masechta Kiddushin. There the Gemara talks also about kinyanim b'chlal, b'negei to karka, metaltalin. So in the brise of kiddushin, Rav Hoshia taught as follows: Noal, Godar, Paratz, Kol Shehu. A person locked the door of the house. Now that when it says here locked, it doesn't just simply mean that you lock the door. Locking the door does not create a kinyan. You have to put on a new lock on the door. That's a kinyan. Or godar, if you put up a fence, and the Gemara will explain exactly the details of this, or paratz, or you made an opening in a fence, kol shuhu. And this is even if it's just a kol shuhu, just a tiny drop, which will also be explained in the Gemara, what's the meaning of a kol shuhu. B'fanav, if this is done in front of him, in front of the seller, then areizu chazakeh. Then the act, this kind of act, creates a chazakah, meaning that's what creates the kinyan that you acquire the property. Okay, so now the Gemara is medayik every part of this brayse. First, the Gemara starts with befanov in. It says here that the kinyan has to be done in front of the seller. Shaloi befanov loy, but if it's not in front of him, then it's not going to be a kinyan. Why is that the case? If you got the agreement of the seller to buy this property, or even more, you paid him for it, and then you go ahead and do the act of the kinyan, why does it have to be befanov, in front of him dafke? So Rava explains as follows: Hachi ka'amar. This is what this brayse is saying. Befanov, if you are doing this act of the chazakeh in front of the seller, then letzarach lemeimale lechazek kni. Then the seller does not have to explicitly tell you to go and do this act of the kinyan to acquire it right now with this act. Because if it's right in front of him, so you have an agreement of him that you're buying it, and even more so you paid him for it, and he's seeing what you're doing, that you're going to create that kinyan right now, so it's understood that he agrees to you doing this act of the kinyan to acquire it right now.
What is he doing before him?
What is he?
What is he doing before him? What act is he doing?
No, beforehand, it was just an agreement. They agreed. He agreed to buy. He gave money for it, but there was no actual ma'isa kinyan to acquire it. So if it's befanov,
like to take some of the
no kinyan before. There was no suda, nothing. This is the kinyan. Before there was just an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
It was an agreement. They paid, but the money that was paid here, though, the Rashbam explains that even if they paid in advance, usually kesef is one of the kinyanim that works for karka. Actually, you can be kaina karka with kesef, shtar, or chazakeh. But over here, the money that was paid before, it's in a place where the minig is that the kesef itself does not create any kinyan. The kesef was not the kinyan. The kesef is just a payment. But the actual kinyan is just the chazakeh. So if it's in front of the seller, then you don't have to have his permission that he tells you lechazek kni. But if you're going to be machzik in the karka physically by one of these actions to make the chazakeh, and it's not in the presence of the seller, then if it's not with his knowledge that you're doing this act right now, he has to give you explicit permission. He's telling you go and be machzik in the karka, and then the chazakah will take effect. That's the point of what Rav Hoshia was teaching here. So Boy Rav Masne, Boy Rav, that is, Rav asks the shaila, Matonech. What's the halacha regarding a matana? So here we're talking about a sale, where you paid for something. And we're making this distinction that if it's shaloi b'fanov, then it's necessary to get explicit permission to go and do the act of the kinyan in the karka. So Rav wants to know, how about by a matana? Does the same thing apply when you give a gift, that if it's shaloi b'fanov, you're going to need explicit permission to be machzik in the karka? Amar Shmuel, so Shmuel says, Mai tebayeh leila Abba. Why does Abba, which is Rav, have a shaila about this? If in the case of a sale where there was an agreement for the sale, and furthermore you gave money for it already, so if it's shaloi b'fanav, only if you got permission to go and do the act of the kinyan, then the kinyan takes effect. But if you didn't get permission for this, you cannot do the act of the kinyan. Matana lekol shekain, by a matana where he's giving you a matana, but you're not paying for it. So there's less of a willingness on behalf of the giver. He's less eager for you to go and acquire it. So in such a case, He's losing bite. He's giving you a gift. Definitely, you should have to wait specifically to get his permission for the lei chazek kni if you want to actually make the act of the kinyan to acquire it shalei b'fanav. So Shmuel says it's a kal v'chomer. For sure, you have to get his permission. So the Gemara explains why did Rav have a shaila about this. Rav Sovar. However, Rav's opinion was mandi yov matone, when a person gives a gift ba'ayin yofe yov. A person gives with a good eye. So Adarabah, when a person sells, there's all kinds of circumstances that cause a person to sell, and sometimes the person is not happy about the whole sale. So there, he could be thinking to the last moment, maybe he doesn't want the sale to go through, so you have to get his permission. By a gift, though, he's giving the gift to you happily. So over here, there's no sfekis. You could be machzik, maybe lechazek kni, without him telling you lechazek kni, you could go and be machzik. That was the reason why Rav had any boy about this. So the Rashbam here explains, Shmuel doesn't disagree with this concept of kol ha-noisin b'ayin yofen noisin. However, Shmuel applies it differently. Shmuel says, when a person gives you a gift, and the question is, what's included in what he gave you? There's different options of how to define what exactly is included. So then we say b'ayin yofen, a person gives generously. Here, though, there's a different shaila. There's a suffix whether he b'chlal agrees already to give. When there's a suffix about whether he wants to give or not, and you need explicit permission, Shmuel holds that definitely by a matana you would need explicit permission. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the lashon of the Braise that noal goda paretz, this act of the kinyan, in all three of them, it's a kol shuhu. Even just something you do an act which is a tiny thing, the kinyan takes effect. Says the Gemara v'kama kol shuhu. What exactly is this kol shuhu that the Braise said? And says the Gemara to the Shmuel, as Shmuel explained, Oma Shmuel, Gelda Geder, you put up a fence, or really there was already a fence here in this property, and Vishlima Lasada, you just added a drop to it, and now it's 10 tfachim high. So that even if it was 9.5 tfachim, or was almost 10, you just added a tiny drop, so then it's going to be a kinyan. And the same thing by the Padatz Pirza, or you breached open an opening in a fence, you made a little opening so that you can come in and go out through that opening. It'll be a chazakah. That's how Shmuel explained this. But the Gemara is still not satisfied with this because this doesn't explain the word kolshu. Kolshu means that even if it's whatever it is, a tiny drop, how does what Shmuel said explain kolshu? The Gemara asks, Hi Geder Hechidami. The fence here in this property, sorry, what are we talking about here? That even before you added an addition to this fence, people were not able to climb over this fence. And now you added a little bit to the fence, they also can't climb over it. So what did you do? Why should it be any kinyan? And so the Rashbam explains, let's say the fence, even though it's not so high, it's less than 10 tfachim, which is not high at all, but nevertheless, if the fence is built on a slant, on an outward slant, and it's very hard to climb over it, or if the ground in that area is on a hill, and you can't climb up there to get to the fence to go over, so the fence, even before you added anything, is in a position that you can't climb over it, and you add another few inches to it. You didn't add it, you didn't do anything. It's not even a kol shu either. The Ella, so we must say, what you did, what you added, accomplished something. Before you added that little part, it was possible to climb over the fence. And now it's 10 tvachim high, and now people can't climb over the fence. If so, tuva of it. So you accomplished a lot. Now it's protected the property. Why are we calling that a kol shehu in the lashon of the Braise? Answers the Gemara, lo yitzriche, chiddush in the Braise is only in the following case. The meikara have a salkila beravche. Before you added this addition to the fence, it was possible to climb over it very easily. You can still climb over it, but it's much more difficult. So you can't say that you accomplished something big, but you can't say you did nothing. You did a kol shu. You made it a little bit more difficult to climb over. That's enough of an act of adding a geder here to this, or a certain part to this geder, that it's a kinyan. Gemara says a similar pshat regarding the pirza. High pirza hechidami, when it says that you made a breach in the opening in the fence, and even a kolshu, it'll be a kinyan. So what is the case? This opening that there was here already before, it was possible to enter through that opening. Now, even after you broadened the opening a little bit, you can also come in and out. So what did you do? The Ela must mean the Meikare Loyavailiba. This opening in the fence was too small that it was impossible to squeeze in through it. And now you added to the opening, and now it's possible to come in. So Tuva, you accomplished a lot. Why would that be called a Kol Shuhu? Again, the Gemara says, so we only need this. The case here is the meikara v'ayla b'duchke. In this opening in the fence, and you were able to enter in b'deichik. It was hard to squeeze in. And you added a little bit to the opening, and now it's easier to get in. And that's the kol shu. It's enough to be kaina. I mentioned before that Rashbam speaks about noal, which the Gemara does not talk about. The same thing regarding noal, that also a kol shuhu. But then by the noal, the Rashbam says, as I mentioned, there has to be that you put up a lock on the door. Stam locking the door with a lock that it has already is not. It's not a kinyan. The Rashbam does add something here though, that over here we're discussing a person that wants to acquire a property that was from a ger that died and there's no yarshim and it's hefker. So in such a case, by putting up a door, a noal, you have to put up a new lock in order to be kaina. But when you get to a house that you buy from someone, or a property that you buy from someone, and there's a fence around it, if you get the keys for it, and now you have the keys and you lock it, mefsiris hamafteach is a kinyan. That's by the Rashbam brings from the Gemara in Pesachim, by renting or by buying. But by nichsi ager, there's nobody to give you a key for this house. That's not the case where you have a meicher and a keyach. Over here is noal godar or paratz. And you have to, by the noal, it's putting up a new lock on the door. Other applications for this kind of kinyan, where the point of noal godar paratz is that you did something to change or to improve the karka or the property. So Rabbi Yechanan said, "Nosan sroir." If you put a pebble there's a fence in the property, and you add a stone, a pebble there to close up an opening in the fence. And v'hoyel, and it was beneficial for the property, or not al tzroir, or you removed a stone or a pebble from the area by the fence, and v'hoyel, and it was a benefit for the property. Hareza chazaka. This will be a chazaka. The Gemara explains what exactly was the benefit for the property. My nosan or my notl. What was the circumstance where you put that stone there, or you took it away? If you'll say the circumstance was nosan tzroir, you put a stone there by an opening in the property, and what did you accomplish? V'sochar mayimino. You blocked a flood of water from coming into the property. There was a flood in that area, and you went and you blocked that the water, the property shouldn't be flooded. Or similar, not al tzroir, va'apik mayimino. If the property was already flooded and the water had no way to go out, so you made an opening, you took away a stone, and you made an opening in a side of the property so the water could flow out. In such a case, you wouldn't be kaina, because this can be compared to someone that if you see a lion is coming to attack someone or coming to attack a property, and you chase them away. So what you're basically doing is, it's a form of the mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda. Just like anytime you see a lost object and there's a mitzvah to pick it up and return it to its owner, when you see a property which is about to get destroyed, it's in a situation where if not you coming to help, it's lost and it's going to be destroyed, whether by a flood or by a lion, and you come and you save it. So it's Hashavas Aveda. So doing an act, which is really a mitzvah of Hashavas Aveda, is not going to qualify for a kinyan that you're coming and expressing your ownership in this karka by improving the karka. So Ella says the Gemara, what does Rav Yechanan mean? Nasan tzroir, that when you put up a stone there to block the wall, what you did is that samad lamaya. There's water in the property, and you want the water to stay there. It's not a flood. It's water in order for the water to water the produce. So you put the stone there that the water shouldn't just flow out, but the water should stay there and get absorbed in the ground. So you did something that's beneficial for watering the ground. Or not altzara, you removed a stone, and you allowed water that's outside to flow in to give water for the property. So this basically what you're doing is you're watering the property. You're improving the quality of the property. So therefore that's a kinyan. Another Allah Rav Asi said in the name of Rabbi Yechanan regarding the act of chazaki and a karka. When you have shtei sodas, you have two fields that are near each other. And there's a meitzar between them. This meitzar is an area, the Rishonim say it's like a pathway between them, which serves also as a border between the two properties. So you made an act of a chazake in one of these properties. So let's say both of these properties belong to the same seller, and he's trying to sell you both of them. But the act of the chazakeh that you did is only in one property in order to acquire it. So kana, you acquire that property and you don't acquire the other one. If you do the act of chazakeh in one property, and your intention is to be kind of that property, and also the other property that's on the other side of the Metzer, on the other side of this pathway, this fence between them. So then, the one that you did the chazaka in, that's the one you kaina. The other one you will not be kaina. Here the Rashbam explains that this is only again in a case where you're being zeiche in these two karkais actually menahefke. It's not like I mentioned before that it's talking about one seller here that's trying to sell you two karkais. In such a case, actually, the Gemara says in a few places that if a person wants to sell you more than one piece of land or more than one property, and you make a kinyan chazaka in one, and you paid him for all the properties, and it's understood that there's an agreement to buy both of these properties, even if they're on different parts of the world. We say sadna da'ara chadu, and you can make a kinyan chazaka in one, and you kind of the other property as well. Here, though, it's not talking about a case where there's a seller, and where there's a payment, where there's an agreement. Here, it's talking about, again, being zeicher from a nichse ager, from a property that's hefker. So these two properties that have this meitzer in between, and you made an act of a kinyan or chazaka in one, even with the intention to acquire the other as well, you're not kind of the other one. If the person went and liknes as chaverta, he made an act of kinyan chazaka in one, but he specifically did not intend to buy this karka. He's doing it with the intention to buy the other one on the other side of the metzer. So then you're not kind of even this property that you made the kinyan chazaka in. You didn't have intention to acquire this b'chlal. Your kavan is to be kind of the other one. In every kinyan, the kavan of the person is integral to the kinyan taking effect. Rab Zeira has a shaila about this case. Hichzik b'achas men liknois oisa ve'as metzer ve'as chaverta mahu. What's if you made a kinyan chazaka in one, and your intention is that it's all you should be kind of everything. This karka, the metzer, which I said is like a pathway in between, separating the two. You want to be kind of that pathway as well, and you want to be kind of the other karka on the other side of the pathway. So you want to be kind of it all. So then maybe you could say mahu. So miyamrin do we say, and in such a case when you have this kind of kavana, so metzer darachadu. So it's all considered to be one long karka because you want to be kind of it all. The kani. Or I say that each one is separate, and therefore even if you had kavanah to be kaina the whole entire thing, you can't. You could only be kaina where you made your kinyan chazaka. Not because there's a metzer, it is physically separated into two separate properties. You're not going to be able to be kaina the metzer or the other side of the other property. Teiku, this remains unresolved. By Rabbi Lazar in about this case. What's if the place where the person does the act of the chazakeh is in that pathway in between, and likna is steyen, and his intention is to acquire both properties on both sides of the meitzer where he made the act of chazakeh. So what's the halacha here? Do I say, hi meitzer afsir da'arahu? This meitzer, this pathway in between, is considered to be like the leash of these two properties. Just like a leash is what you hold on to a pet with. So the same thing here. This pathway in between serves sort of as a border and a protection for both of these properties. So therefore the meitzer in between is connected to both properties, and it's the protection for both properties. So if you make a chazaka there, so it's considered like an act of a chazaka in both of these properties. So you kind of both of them. Or I say, each property is considered to be a place for itself, and it's not like an afsar, it's not like a leash to the properties, and therefore you're not going to be kind of not this property and not this property. Teiku, this also remains unresolved. Similar halacha, the Gemara says, if there are two houses, or two rooms of houses, and one is inside the other, the place where you made your chazakeh is in the outside room or the outside house. Your intention is to acquire that outside house. So you acquire it. The act of chazakeh that you make in the outside house is with the intention to be kind of it and also to be kind of the inside room. The place where you're doing the act of the chazakeh, the outside, that you're kind of. The one on the inside, that you will not be kind of. If you make the act of the kinyan, the chazakah, only in the outside house, and you're not even intending to buy it, you want to buy the inside, then you don't acquire either, not the outside one that you don't intend to buy, and not the inside one, you didn't make the act of the chazakah there. Now how about if it's the opposite? And here the halacha will be different than by the karkais, and over here, if you want to acquire the inside house, and you made the act of the chazakah there to be kind of it, so you acquire the inside house. If you're making the act of the chazaka on the inside house, and your intention is to be kind of the inside and the outside, then over here it's different. Here, kana shneyen, you will acquire both of them. And the reason is because the one that lives on the inside house has a pathway going through the outside house. That's how he goes through. So there's a connection between the two of them. He has the rights to go through the outside house. So when he's kind of the inside house, it includes a certain aspect of the outside house. So therefore, if you have the kavanah to be kind of the inside and the outside, you will be kind of both of them. Likness is a chitzon. However, if he's making the kain on the inside and he has kavanah to be kind of only the outside, then af primi lekana, you're not going to be kind of not the outside and not the inside either. Another halacha regarding acquiring a property, and here we're talking about again acquiring from nichsei ager, from a property that's ager that died and has no yorshim and it's hefker. So on this, Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba bar Avua, Hapayna palterin gedolim b'nichsei ager. You want to come and acquire this property. So what do? You come and build yourself a big, huge palace in this property of the nichsei ager. Uba someone else comes to this unfinished construction, and v'hamed land dalsis. There was no doors that you put up on this palace yet, and someone else puts up the doors on this palace. Kana, the one that put up the doors and closed it, and now it's Noal basically, or Godar, then he's going to be kaina. But you that just built this big palace here that's totally open for anybody to come into, you're not going to be kaina. And the Gemara explains why. You built the entire palace, he just put up the doors. Why by building the palace are you not kaina? My time, Kama, the first one that built the palace, Livni ba'alme hu da'apech. It's just like a person that brings in a bunch of bricks into this property and would pile up bricks here with no benefit of it being used. So you're not going to be kaina. If you build a huge palace but there's no doors, it's totally open and exposed, there's no kaina here at all. But the other person that went and put up the doors, that's null. Now you closed it up. That's a kinyan.
He's acquiring the karka.
And a chanami, right. But just like if you put up a fence around the karka, so you're closing it up, so now this section of the karka where the palace is built, and you put up the doors, you're closing it up, that's the null.
The Rebbe speaks about it with
the
the
Rebbe brought this, when they get to the Bein Beis HaMikdash, I was about to say, the whole shaila, whether the Beis HaMikdash will be min hashamayim, like it says in the Zohar, or the way it's mashma from the other Rishonim, the way it's in the Rashi and the Rambam, or actually the Rashi says the min hashamayim, the Rambam says that it's going to be built here b'dei Adam. So one of the ways the Rebbe explains how they can both be true is that the Beis HaMikdash is going to come down min hashamayim, but the doors, the dal size, will be b'dei Adam. And just like you see here, that the one that puts up the doors is like the one that's kaina and finishes the whole thing, so therefore we could consider it to be a binyan that we build here below.
Door installation is a great business.
Yeah. Amar Rav Dimi bar Yosef, Amar Rabba Lazar, Hamaitze palterim b'nichsei ager. A person finds this property of a ger that died, no inheritors, and it's hefker. So he wants to be kainit. So what do? To express your ownership that you're making an improvement, a change in this palace that you find here, in this property of the ger. The Sod Bem Siyad. He went and he put some plaster on the wall to fix something. Siyad Echad. Or he put up some nice painting on the wall, or not that he put up a painting. He made a painting. He drew a painting on the wall. So kana, that's enough of an improvement in this palace that will be kainet. Avakama, how big does this seal, the plaster that he put up have to be? Amar Rav Yosef, ama or ama al ama. It should be an ama by an ama. That's the space that is considered to be a significant enough of an improvement. And according to the Hagos Tzionim here, it says Ama Alama. Now, Rav Chiste says on this, Ukeneged HaPesach. That shear of Ama Alama is going to be enough only if it's right by the opening of the house. So that's a place which is very exposed and open. So there that shear is enough. But if it's in a different area in the house, so if you do it somewhere in a bedroom or any place where it's not so exposed, so then it has to be more than Ama Alama. Rav Amram said another halacha regarding acquiring a property. Hi Milse, the following halacha, Amalan Rav Sheshes taught us, and then Vanerinu Einen, and he illuminated our eyes, Mimasnita, from what it says in a Braisa or a Mishnah, or it's a Braisa. Yeah. What's this halacha? There's another way how to acquire a property, and that is Hamatzia Matzois Benichsia Ger, this property of a ger that's hefker, and you want to acquire it. You prepare, you spread out bedding to lie down there, kana, you'll acquire it. And according to the Rashbam, the reason why you're going to acquire this is because you're using the karka. the karka is serving you. The very fact that the karka is serving you by you being able to sleep there and you put down the matzos, so you're going to be kaina. So according to the Rashbam, it's not enough if a person just spreads out this bedding on the ground, but he actually uses it. He actually lies there and uses it. So then you're going to be kaina. So over here, this is a chiddush, because till here we were speaking about the fact that you're improving the karka in one way or another. Here, though, it's not that you're improving the karka. Here, the karka is serving you, and therefore, that's also an expression of an act that it's yours and you kaina it. And he brought us a raya from the following braisa. Ma'hi, what's the braisa? The Tanya we learned regarding a evet kanani. One of the ways to acquire an evet kanani, similar to a karka, is by chazakeh. Now, what is the chazakah of an evet kanani? Keitzad b'chazakeh, no'alei minalei. If this evet kanani ties the shoes of his master, or hitalei manalei, or unties the shoes, or shahilach kelev achrav leveis hamerchatz, or he carries your clothing for you to the bathhouse, v'hivshita, he undresses him, v'chitza, he washes him, sachai, gardai, he helps him in the Beis HaMerchatz, whether with soap or with scrubbing him with whatever it is, of Hilbisha, or then he dresses him, v'niloi, puts on his shoes, v'higbiyai, and he picked him up. So this is in the case where his master has to get up on a high bed, and he picks him up to get into his bed. Kanai, he will acquire.
The Eved?
The master will acquire the Eved by the fact that he's using the Eved. So that is the expression of your ownership in this Eved by the fact that you're using him. Now, according to the Rashbam, the main raya here that we're bringing from this brisa to the kinyan that we're saying here in the karka is from this last case of higbiyai. Just like by higbiyai, the eved is lifting up the master to get him to bed, for example. So you're using the eved in this way by him lifting you up. So too, when you spread out bedding on the ground and then you lie on the ground and the ground is like holding you to lie there in this ground, so then you coin it. This is all the Rashbam's Shitta and this Gemara. There's many Rishonim there that speak about this kind of kinyan here. In the Gemara, other Rishonim say that the point over here is not the fact that the karka, that you're using the karka for your benefit, but it's really the point that you designated the karka for your use. Just like Nal Gada Parat, the point over here is the fact that you improve the karka in one way or another. Also over here, this is considered to be a certain sort of change that you have made in the karka, that you now designated the karka for yourself in this kind of way. And also over here, benigay to the Eved, the point here is the fact that the Eved is sort of designated for you to be your Eved. And according to those Rishonim, it's not necessary to actually lie on this bedding in the karka for the kinyan to be a kinyan. It's just the fact that the karka is designated for you that the kinyan takes effect. Okay, the Gemara brings the conclusion of that brisa regarding the Eved. Omer Rab Shimon said, Lo tehei chazakeh gedolah ma'hagbah. The kinyan of chazakeh should not be greater than hagbah when you lift something up. Shagba kaina b'chol mokim. When you lift something up, it's always kaina. So the Gemara explains, what is Rab Shimon arguing with? The Tanakama also said hagbah. My ka'ama. What was Rab Shimon saying to the Tanakama? Says the Gemara, hachi ka'amar. This is what he meant to say. Higbiya l'rabbi. The Tanakama is saying that if the Eved lifts up his master kanai, so then you're going to be kaina. And that's actually an act of chazakah, that you're using him by him lifting you up. Higbiya rabbi loi. But if the master wants to acquire his Evet Kanani and his master picks up this Evet Kanani, loy kanai, then he will not acquire it. And on this, Rab Shimon said, loy tei chazaka gedolah ma'hagbah. The power of the kinyan of chazaka should not be greater than the power of the kinyan of hagbah. Hagbah is the most powerful kinyan. It can be done anywhere, even in someone's private domain. When you pick it up in your possession, you're always kaina with hagbah. Shagbah kaina b'chol makim. Hagbah is always kaina, and therefore here as well, if the master picks up his Eved, so then it's going to be kaina as well. Not only if the Eved picks up his master.